What's going on, guys? In this video we're talking about some of the best phones of 2017. Now of course we have the Pixel phones from Google, the Galaxy Note 8, the S8, the S8 Plus from Samsung, the iPhones from Apple, the Essential phone from Essential, and of course the LG V30, LG V30 Plus from LG. Now when I talked about the Pixel phones before, that was the original Pixel phone. Well, actually it was the Nexus phones and then you had the Pixel phones. You know, I was always impressed with the fact that you have the stock version of Android on the Pixel phones, or even the Nexus phones. Now we're talking about the Pixel 2 and the Pixel 2 XL. Pixel 2 manufactured by HTC working with Google, and then the Pixel 2 XL, of course the larger version of that phone with a screen from LG. Now there's already complaints about that screen, some people have issues with it, we'll have to see what happens with that. But as far as both phones with the way they're designed, I think there's too much bezel to the phone. That's only because with all these phones that we're seeing, for the most part, we're seeing a more impressive design with less bezel. And I think Google really messed that up. No offense to Google, but that's the situation with them. Then we're talking about the iPhones. The iPhone 8 and 8 Plus, I think those phones make absolutely no sense because, again, the design of the phones. When you talk about that iPhone 10, it has a much more impressive design besides the fact that part of the screen is missing. You know, the situation with Apple is very interesting. Apple knows how to manufacture phones. They know how to announce phones, but when they try to innovate in such a way like this, it's such a different design from previous versions of the iPhone. I have to ask one question to Apple. Where is the rest of that screen? You have to really think about this. Apple wanted to innovate the design of the iPhone. They want to announce it before the holidays. They also want to have a phone that competes with the Galaxy phones or even the LG phone. And then you see this phone where a portion of the screen is missing. I really think that Apple has to change that. When I talked about the LG V30 or even about the LG V30 Plus, the phones are more impressive than any other phone on the market right now, in my opinion, because they got the design of the phone right. Now, I'm a fan of Android, so of course I'm going to like a phone that has Android. But when I looked at the Essential phone, one of the issues there, I thought, was with the screen. The screen itself is impressive, but the portion of the screen that's missing, even though it's slight in the center of the screen, I think that needs to be changed. Now, Essential tried to explain that, and they have their reasons for doing that, of course, because that's the way they want to design the phone, and they think you're getting a great experience with the phone. But I think overall, the screen has to be complete, and it also has to have a screen that's more familiar to people purchasing these phones. Because if they see something different, it's not going to always be a good situation, especially compared to other phones that you're competing with. Now with Apple, of course, they have this brand loyalty where everyone wants to get an Apple product that's a fan of Apple. I realize that. But I'm just saying overall, I think that needs to change with Apple. It's no offense to them either, because I think they're trying to manufacture some of the best phones available. When we talk about the Essential phone though, I actually got to use the Essential phone recently. I think it's a very impressive phone. It's a smaller phone compared to the other phones out there, of course. You're not getting a phablet, but it's still a phone that's manufactured well, and of course, this company just manufactured their first phone this year. So you have to give them an opportunity to improve that. But if you want an interesting phone that's not a phablet, the Essential phone would be one of those phones. As far as Apple has to figure out what they're doing with these iPhones. The iPhone 8 and 8 Plus should not even exist. That's my personal opinion. Or if they do, they should be designed like the iPhone 10 with a complete screen. There's no reason for an iPhone 8 and 8 Plus at this point. I just think you have to move forward, and if people don't want to upgrade their phones, they don't have to, they can wait, and then you get a better phone where you don't have to have the cheaper phone because you're just going to continue to have better phones. That's the way I think companies should manufacture their phones. Apple is not the only company to do this. Motorola is one of those companies that has like 1 million phones, and then you're seeing every variation of the phone they want to manufacture because they want to have more options out there for people to purchase phones from them. So not everyone wants to get the most expensive phone. So this is why Apple's doing that. But again, we talk about these phones and which would be the best phones of the year. With the Pixel 2 XL, I think if you have that screen figured out, the bezel is not really impressive to me, so I can't say that's one of the best phones available. I would really like to see the Pixel phones to be the best, but with Google, with the way they manufacture the phones, they're not serious with the way they manufacture phones. And again, no offense to Google. When you guys manufacture phones and you pick HTC for one phone, LG for another phone with a screen, you have to go and use one company. If you can't manufacture the phones yourselves, you have to really figure that out. I've said that about the first Pixel phones, and then we're talking about these Pixel phones. You know, with the design of the Nexus 6, I thought they got that right at the time, so when they worked with Motorola, but that was a completely different situation because now we're talking about Google working with other companies, and of course, with companies like HTC manufacturing their phones, then they're manufacturing the phones from Google. You know, Google and HTC, I don't really think is the best solution. I really think it should be a company like LG or even possibly Samsung. Now, would Google work with Samsung? Probably not at this point because Samsung really wants to have their own platform for their phone phones and also compete with Android. So it gets confusing to a point because even Apple works with Samsung, and Samsung and Apple really don't want to work with each other because they want to figure these things out on their own and compete, because you got those Galaxy phones and of course you have the iPhones, and those are some of the most popular phones in the industry. So as far as the best phones of 2017, I'm talking about the most popular phones and the phones that are going to sell the most for a variety of reasons, including the best designs, the best technology, and of course the best experience. For Apple fans, they are going to get that iPhone 10. As far as the other phones available, the Android phones, we're talking about the LG V30 especially. I'm saying that's one of the best phones of this year because of the way it's designed and the fact that it's a phablet and you have Android. So for all those reasons, one of the best phones available. Then you're talking about the Galaxy phones, the S8 Plus and the Galaxy Note 8. I think those are some of the better phones from Samsung. But if you want a smaller phone, you can get the Galaxy S8. Then you're talking about the Essential phone. Again, another smaller phone, not a phablet. That's a very impressive phone. I recommend if you're looking for an interesting Android phone that's not from Samsung or even LG, very cool phone from Essential. And as far as what would be the best phone, what I would consider the best phone at this point, I am saying the LG V30. I said the Samsung Galaxy Note 8 would be the phone of the year because it's leading the industry with the way it's designed. Some people out there are saying that Samsung borrowed ideas from LG. All these companies borrow ideas to a point from each company. Some of these companies even work with each other like I was talking about before. But I really think that LG V30 is a very cool phone, and I also think from using the phone, it's a phone I would be very interested in. LG V30 Plus actually. But with all these phones compared to each other, I think LG, Samsung, of course Apple, Google, even though I'm not a fan of the way the Pixel phones are designed, if you're looking for the stock version of Android, that would be another phone that you would want to use. Now again, with all these phones compared to each other, I do think there is a situation going on here, a lot of confusion, because of the people reviewing the phones. And this is something I wanted to talk about also. What I'm noticing is that these people invited to the events, of course reviewing the phones, the companies send them a phone, and also possibly even being included in commercials for those companies. I just think there's an issue here with honesty with the way people review phones. If you are going to these events and you have these companies sending you phones and then you could be even included in their commercial, you have to explain that to your audience. I think the issue though is when people start talking about these phones, they're saying they're about real talk and they're saying they're being honest, but they don't want to explain their relationship with those companies. Now it's obvious because you can even see a recent commercial with Samsung where so many people dislike the commercial. And it's probably for the fact that you're trying to explain to people that you're giving a real opinion in a commercial when the commercial itself is just exactly that. It's an advertisement for a company. So Samsung is one of the companies that does this. I think LG to a point does this as well. Google does this. But when it goes to the point of having people in your commercials, including for Samsung, and all these companies are talking about their phones, and then the people reviewing the phones are advertising for your company, I think someone has to say something at some point and say, you know what? That needs to change. And if you're going to talk about these phones and you want to be in someone's commercial, there's no way that you can be impartial. No matter how many times you review the phone or you're saying, hey guys, you know, this is my real opinion about the phone, you're in the commercial for the company. And then you guys go ahead and you say, don't buy phones from other companies. Now, one example is that there were some people out there saying, don't get the Essential phone. Really, that clearly saying, don't go buy that Essential phone. And I thought that was really confusing because if you are advertising for another company, you say that you have an honest opinion, how can you tell people not to go buy a phone like that where it's one of the most impressive phones available that's an Android phone? And I'm saying that as someone that's a fan of Android, and of course I was really looking for those Pixel phones to be very impressive. So just about these reviews, I would say if you want to talk about these phones, you have to be honest about them, and if there's something negative about the phone, of course you got to talk about it. And we're not talking about the colors of the phone. Some of you out there, to be impartial in your own opinion, you might talk about something trivial about the color of the phone and say you have an issue with that. That is not being impartial. Being impartial is noticing that part of the iPhone 10 screen is missing, or even talking about that with the Essential phone, or even with the Galaxy Note 8 when I said the phone was too narrow, in my own opinion. If you want to talk about these phones, you have to realize, and I'm sure you guys realize, that there's a lot of people out there that are spending a lot of money on the phones, and they want an honest opinion about the phone. So I think that really needs to change. And I'm not saying this about one person that reviews a phone or one website. It's not about that. We're talking about people who go to the events, they're applauding the phones, they're cheering the phones, even at the Google event for the Pixel phones. And I was like, did you see the bezel on the phone? I mean, yes, you might think that's impressive, but could you actually say what's going on with the phones so people understand if they should purchase the phone or not, or they even should try to use the phone? I used the LG V30 Plus, I got to use the phone, the Essential phone, even with the Galaxy phones you guys saw. You know, if I use these phones, then I can understand which phone I think is the best. You know, everyone's gonna have a different opinion, but I would say when people review the phones, they have a responsibility. It's very confusing for consumers to see a company like Apple, who's always talking about innovation, manufacture a phone like the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus. There's too much bezel to the phone. They're trying to sell a cheaper version of the iPhone because they realize not everyone's going to upgrade to the iPhone 10. But what you do have is a lot of brand loyalty, and of course you're gonna have a lot of people that want to get the iPhone 8 and 8 Plus for that fact. So that's what's going on with Apple. And then you're talking about these phones because those companies sent you the phone. Yeah, we have to talk about this. We have to talk about the reality in this tech industry where people are not giving honest opinions because they're ignoring that fact and they're just trying to tell people to go buy a phone from one company to the other. And I think that really needs to change. But I would like to know what you guys think. Post your comments down below. Let me know which phone you think is the best phone of 2017. And of course, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace out.